Here we're going to be going through a dollar value LIFO method, and what we're going to be going through is just an example here on how to make the calculations. And what this LIFO stands for is last in first out inventory method here. And this is with this dollar value LIFO method, this is where you determine and measure any increases or decreases in inventory based in the terms of a total dollar value, not the physical quantity of goods in inventory. Now there's a two-step process here. Step one, where you have to convert the inventory to the base year price, and then step two, we're going to determine inventory cost in terms here of a real dollar quantity increase here in our inventory. So first let's look at our example here. We're going to have 4 years here, years 20x1 through 20x4 here, and what we have here is we have our actual cost. We're going to have an actual cost here for each one of our years here, and then we have this price index. This is what we're going to be using for our conversion. And for 20x1, it starts out at 100, or in this case it's a percentage, or 100% here. And then going up here, let's say to 20x4, we move up to 130% here. So based on our first year index here of 100%, at 20x4, it's worth 130% here based on our first year here. So let's go and look at how we convert here to the base year cost for our inventory, the year-end inventory. We simply take the actual cost here and divide it here by the price index. So let's take a look here for year X1. Well, we had an actual cost of 400,000 and the price index is just plain 1 here, so you divide that in here and the base year cost is 400,000. Let's just go up here and look at like 20x3 here. Well, our actual cost here is 600,000 divided by our price index here. In that case, it's 1.20, so our base year cost is $500,000. So 20x3 here, the actual cost of 600,000 when we convert it back to the base year here, 20x1, it's worth 500,000. Now, what we do here is we have to look at the change in inventory from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. This is what we're going to be looking at here. So take 20x1, well, we had no change in inventory. It was 400,000 the actual cost, and it's 400,000 here for the base year cost, so 0 here. But year X2 here, well, we've increased here to 520,000 from 400,000, so we had an increase here of 120,000. Now let's look at year X3 here. Well, we were sitting at 520,000 here for year X2, but at the end of year X3 here, we're sitting at 500,000. So the difference here is a decrease of 20,000. And then again for year X4 here, we just take the year X3 amount here of 500,000. It increased to 540,000 here for year X4. So we had an increase here in our inventory of $40,000. Now, this is where we were going to be moved down here. This is where we're going to be using these decreases, increases and decreases in our inventory here to determine our LIFO cost, or converting from the actual cost here to our LIFO cost. And this is why we've calculated those increases and decreases in our inventory. Now again, this is where step 2 comes in, and this is where we determine the inventory cost in real terms here. So let's look at it here. We have ending inventory, the actual cost. These aren't going to come into play here in our calculations. I'm just showing it here. And what we're going to do is we're going to calculate our ending inventory, the LIFO cost here, based on inventory layers, the base year cost. For what this encompasses here is our inventory cost here is going to include layers here, or base year layers, the change in inventory that we had from the beginning to the ending inventory. So let's just go through this here. For year X1 here, well, we had $400,000 worth of our actual cost here, and we converted it over here at the base year here was 100% here. So the LIFO cost is 400,000. That's simply the 400,000 value here. So this is going to be our base year here. That's 400,000. Now let's look at year X2 here. Well, we take the year X1 base year layer of here, 400,000. That's our base amount here, and convert it over here with our index here, again 400,000. So this is going to be the same here for each of these years here. Now we have to take into account year X2 here, and that inventory layer here, that was the $520,000 amount here in the ending inventory, and then the beginning here was $400,000. So we had $120,000 increase in our inventory, and remember the price index here for year X2 was 1.15 or 115%. Multiplying that amount out here, 120,000 times 1.15, we're going to end up with $138,000 worth of LIFO cost in that inventory through that conversion. So what we're going to have here for year X2, we have to take our base amount here of 400,000 plus the 138,000 here that we converted here for year X2, and the total amount here of our LIFO ending inventory cost here is $538,000. That's here for year X2. Now let's move over here to year X3. Again, we start out with the year X1 here, base amount here of $400,000, but then we add in this year X2 here of $120,000 here times the index amount. But we've got a problem here. For year X3, we had that reduction in inventory of $20,000. So what we would do here, we have to subtract that here, the $20,000 decrease in our inventory. See, we had $500,000 here at the end of the year, and the beginning was $520,000. So we had that $20,000 decrease here. We have to subtract that here from the year X2's inventory layer of $120,000. So year X2 here, the new inventory layer becomes $100,000. Again, you take that times the price index of 1.15%, 115% here, or 1.15. That gives us the LIFO cost here of $115,000 for that index layer here, or that year 2 layer here. So year 3 here, the LIFO cost here is simply the $400,000 base amount plus the $115,000 here for year X2. Year X3 we had to subtract out here. So year X3, we don't really have a layer here. We have to subtract that out. So we end up with, for year X3, the LIFO cost here is $515,000. Now let's go, and we have to work here for year X4 here to determine the inventory layers based on our base year cost. Now again, we used year X1 here of 400,000 times the 100% here gives us $400,000 for our base year here. But then we get down here to year X2 here. Remember here, we had to make that conversion up, or we had to subtract that amount out here. The 120,000 was reduced here by 20,000, so we come up with $100,000 here in this base year cost for year X2. And again, we use that here in year X4 for the continuing on here. We would use year X2. 100,000 times the price index of 1.15 or 115% gives us $115,000. Now this is where we have to understand here. For year X3 here, we've eliminated this this inventory layer. It doesn't exist anymore. It never will exist. So it's gone here. So there is no inventory here for year X3. It's not included in here, so it's just a zero amount. And then year X4, again, that's where we had this increase here from $500,000 in the beginning of our year here to $540,000 here at the end of the year in our inventory. So that increase here was $40,000 times the price index here for year X4 was 130% or 1.3, gives us $52,000. So here is how, then for year X4 here, the ending inventory LIFO cost is simply the 400,000 base year amount here plus year X2 is 115,000. Year X3 is eliminated, zero here, and then year X4's amount here was $52,000. So then for year X4, the LIFO inventory cost here is $567,000. So the point I want to make here is just remember here, when you have a negative change here in the inventory, a reduction, you have to reduce the previous year's inventory layer here, and then that amount gets carried over here into the further calculations we made here. So this was simply just to go through an example here to determine the mechanics here in determining this LIFO inventory, ending inventory cost based on converting the actual cost using this base year inventory or inventory layers.